Hello again. I have my next book to talk about, and I'm going to warn you, it's not an easy one to talk about. And in order for me to talk about it, I have to get into a bit, it gets personal. So, whew, bear with me. Um, I wrote Broken March 7th to March 24th. And it started off as a memoir. It is, I can't even say that. It started off as a journal. I had some questions I needed to answer, and I decided the best way to answer them was by going back and starting to review what had happened to me up until a certain point to determine who I was and what I wanted. I have a very strong philosophical and logical background, so this to me was very natural, very normal to explore existentialism. While I was writing Broken and reviewing the 30 years of trauma that I had experienced and lived through, I emerged, I came to awareness that began my mental healing. At the end of Broken, I'll say again, I wrote 90,000 words in 2 weeks. That is how emotional, passionate, driven I was to get all of this out. And in those 2 weeks that I wrote Broken, I revisited and relived all 30 years of what it was I endured. I have an unusually abusive past, a horrifically abusive past that I won't get into here. When I was done with Broken, I stepped back from it and I was amazed with what I had put down on paper. And I didn't just write a memoir, I didn't just examine what I was or what I had become. I wrote it in story mode, in fiction, as if it were fiction. It is in fact quite realistic from what I remember, and it's very unique. So I handed it to one lady, she read it, and the first thing she said back to me was, "This must be published. There need to be more books like this." I published it. It is currently rated 5 out of 5, and I've had 2 therapists read the book. It is getting astounding reviews. It currently is being submitted to NPR, National Public Radio, for review on Fresh Air, and I will be keeping the update on that, on what happens to Broken thereafter. I always do a random open up the book and start reading. With Broken, I cannot do this because the last time I did this, I was not mentally okay when I was done. So I carefully selected 2 sections that I'm going to read from Broken. Broken is currently on sale for 99 cents on Amazon. Holiday sale, which ends on the 31st of December. And it also continues, it's also on Goodreads for a 20-book giveaway. And, well, I'll go ahead and take a look here and I'll get into this. The next day I sat down at the computer and browsed online. Putzed a lot. Came upon this contest that piqued my interest. It was a poetry contest. It was free, so on a whim I pulled out my old poems and submitted one I had written as a child. I forgot about the contest almost immediately. I browsed some more, cleaned the house, fed the children, and went to bed. The next day I received an email telling me I'd been selected. I was floored. Stunned, really. My English teacher made it clear I couldn't write, and hadn't bothered trying since high school. I decided to see what I could do after 10 years, and so I put pen to paper and wrote Diamond Gold. My perfect love who wasn't, inside me he beset, his lustrous stone of diamond gold, which does not suffer rest. That summer that we claimed, that summer I won't name, he fervently placed diamond gold within my hollowed breast. He came one night with words of love, he seated there his stone, the lustrous stone of diamond gold bound with ardent blood. Each night I laid me down, his diamond gold would grow, until it grew to golden stone, the weight it held me down. Through time I bore that stone, through pain that stone did grow, and with it wanton burning lust from a summer not forgot. Now I know of diamond gold, its burden's hard to bear, it sits as heat inside my breast, disabling my breath. For my love, my perfect love, forever I will bear the pang and weight of that stone, of his diamond gold. I was amazed at my words. They weren't great. They were better than I had expected. Much better than I thought I could do. I was stunned at how easily they came to me, and from that moment on, words engulfed me, and everything I was became them. Emotions expose you. They make you weak. When someone can see your weakness, you are vulnerable, and they can hurt you. Sean had seen my love for Tribble and used her against me to control me. Pissant had used my love for him and aggressively provoked my jealousy to satisfy his own ego. He twisted jealousy's vile blade into me and spun me about like a yo-yo, amusing himself with the games he could make me perform like a trained dog. My mother saw my tears and scolded me. She mocked me and ridiculed me as a joke before the family like a sideshow freak. Joe saw my pity and played my guilt against me, and Scott? Scott saw my desperation, my neglect, my need for approval, my fear of rejection. He fashioned up the strings and made me into his marionette. Through conditioning, he made me his doll. I would walk, talk, think, beg, and fuck exactly as he wanted, when he wanted, at will. That is why I hide my emotions. There hasn't been a single emotion that hasn't been used against me, to control me. And when at last I escaped, I had emerged the master of my emotions. Every emotion: love, hate, grief, anger, fear, guilt, doubt, insecurity, jealousy. I identified each one, separated them, and boxed them, and then I buried those emotions within my darkness, and I threw a blanket of cold stone logic on top of it. On a dime, at any given moment, I can access each and every one of my emotions, and I determine exactly how much of each I let out when. That is when Angel started screaming. When I sat down to write, I tapped my boxes of emotions. I awakened old memories, old pain. I revived my heart and withdrew a cup of hate, a teaspoon of grief, a pound of rage. Through my writing, I began to siphon the pain out of me. It eased the pressure. Angel kept screaming. I wrote, pouring words onto pages. Every word eased my heartache. After a week, I could think. After a month, I could breathe. After 6 weeks, I knew little else but the written word. I pored over websites, learning everything I could on writing. I wrote poems. I let my emotions find me, but only a little. I returned to dance, and for the first time in 7 years, I danced with the music instead of against it. That year, I decided I wanted nothing else but to write. It consumed me, revived me, it saved me. My lessons and books returned. Everything flooded back to me, except the music. In 2006, I announced to Richard that I was pregnant with our third child, Lynn. That is an excerpt from chapter 30. And now, chapter 36. How did your children handle it? William asked. The children didn't even know he was gone, I said. In their minds, he left in September. In December, they never asked, not once, about their father. Amid the screaming and the debates, the fighting and name-calling, Richard dished out his usual approach of locking me in the bedroom. I lost both my jobs due to the stress that affected my attendance. Richard refused to drive me to work and would not allow me to take the bus. He would not take me to a clinic for my thumb, which had swollen and maintained a permanent state of agony. When I finally got to the doctor, they confirmed it had been dislocated and healed in the wrong position. It forever hurt, and my mobility was limited. William glanced at my thumb. I smiled. I reset it a year later, I said. You reset your thumb? He asked. Yep. I pulled it straight until it popped and released a bubble from the joint that I watched travel up my thumb. That felt weird. It was excruciating. The joint tripled in size from the swelling as it had when I first dislocated it, but after it healed, it was like I'd never injured it. Where was Hosea in all this? William asked. We spoke very little when we spoke at all during this time. And you never told him what was going on with your marriage? He asked. I did near the end, I said. I kept it vague, told him there were complications and Richard and I were trying to work things out. I explained my absence and assured him I would be on the computer less and less through that time. I told Hosea nothing more. I was raised listening to my mother bash my father. My mother is a gossip whore. I loathe, detest, despise a woman who gossips. I would not condone such behavior. The trials and tribulations between a husband and a wife should stay between a husband and a wife, nor do I believe a spouse should ever speak poorly of their mate to others, no matter what. I also do not believe a marriage in trouble should ever be shared. It is private, and it is only between two people. My marriage was not news to share with anyone, and Hosea and I still had not discussed a relationship. So, what about Hosea? William asked. I furrowed my brow. What about him? William smiled. You can't tell me that after all those years, when you did eventually see him, you didn't... I smiled. Yes, I said, later we would. How much later? How long did you wait? How long did we wait? I hid my grin behind my fist. 15 years? That's not what I meant, William scolded me. After you and Richard split up, how long did you wait? We didn't. Life's too short. So, I hate making plans. I evaded. I detest them. Plans feel like a prison. What if I changed my mind, changed my mood, changed my heart? Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those women who can't make up my mind. I know what I want. I always know exactly what I want. I'm very decisive, but I hate plans. I hate building expectations. Plans have no room for freedom. We made no plans, but we didn't wait either. Whatever played out would play out. But yes, we both knew if we were together, we would invariably have sex. A week after Richard moved out, Hosea and I swapped phone numbers. I immediately went down to the courts and filed for custody, separation, and divorce. And by the end of December, I had court dates for everything. The divorce was amiable and fast. Richard wanted nothing. I wanted nothing and invited him to take anything he wanted. He took only what he needed and left everything else. For the next 5 years, he would swing by and pick through his stuff. He didn't want to take from the children. He provided $600 every month up until a court agreement was made. The $600 kept the rent. I can't say it was caught up, but it postponed the eviction notices and I began job hunting. Christmas Day, Richard invited us to his mother's. We got there, and within 10 minutes he and I were in a screaming match. He told me to get in the car. He would drive me home. The moment I was buckled in, he drove in the opposite direction. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Kidnapping you." "What?" I shrieked. "We need to talk, and I'm not taking you home until you do." "Let me out of the car!" He refused. He drove for an hour, insisting we talk while I screamed to let me out of the car. He countered, saying that he was kidnapping me and that I would listen. After an hour, he saw that I wouldn't talk under those conditions, or any conditions, for that matter. He took me home. The day after Christmas, Hosea drove up from Boston. 10 years. For 10 years I had suffocated. Yes, it feels like a long, slow suffocation. The desperation, the loneliness, the feeling of complete helplessness, lack of control, inability to direct your own fate, all of it. You kill everything inside of you, anything that makes you feel. You destroy it just so you can live without the pain. After a while, you forget that you feel nothing. You get used to the state of perpetual numb. You forget that you aren't feeling. When Hosea walked through my front door that night, I saw his hands, those hands that I had remembered. I never touched him, not then. I had no idea what he would feel like or taste like. I only remembered his hands. We were shaking, like we'd been chained to the sea floor for 10 years, and suddenly we both were being forced to the surface and experiencing the bends. Our bodies shook, we gasped for air, unsure what to do with so much air. It breathed life into me again. It wasn't lust, it was need. Obsession? Perhaps. Relief? Oh, so much relief. I didn't fall into his arms. I wasn't calm or content. It was a surge of relief so great that I felt my legs give out from under me, and he caught me. I fell into him, and we both broke. Our bodies trembled so violently we felt brittle and were certain we would break with how much we shook. Disbelief. Constant disbelief. This is what a separation like this feels like. It would take us another 2 years to look at one another and not say, "I can't believe you're here." You asked me if we did. Yes, we did. During a December thunderstorm. I should end the story here. If this were a romance, the story would end here. Part of me wants to end the story here. To send you on your way and tell you you have your biography, now get out. You'll hear no more from me. That is how it should end. Right now, with Hosea and I making love in December rain. That is how it would have ended if. Maybe I'll give you a choice. If you want your happy ending, close the book and stop reading right now. Consider the story over and we lived happily ever after in New York, and I never went to Ireland. I never had a problem that was too great for that Hosea couldn't fix. Close the book here and pretend I was never broken.